So welcome everybody, welcome to our forum. It's really great to be able to get together today to talk about the IAT and your experience. What we want to do is we want to give the Department of Health and Aged Care all of your wisdom and all of your words and all of your experiences and the experiences of your clients. Because basically we could have done this in writing, we could have done a wonderful report, we could have filled out a survey, but it's when they hear you that they'll really be able to see what worked really well, what was a bit challenging for you or challenging for your clients, and also importantly, what you did to make the IAT work when faced with a challenging situation.
All right, so what are you most looking forward to about the conference today?
Catching up with the team, people I haven't seen for ages, and getting some more information on the exciting changes.
Absolutely, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Super excited to be here today, see all the colleagues and see how they're all feeling about the changes that we're having, working together to get the best outcome.
Meeting the colleagues and talking about our learnings.
I'm so looking forward to this workshop today because all of WA ACNA are here, and what an amazing time to get all of the experiences together and share the diversity of thinking all about IAT. Are you ready to count down with me? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
I think sometimes you can go in a house and there's quite a toxic situation in the house, which the family may or may not be aware of, but I don't really know that you're benefiting the person by delving that deeply into those questions.
A couple of clients that I've gone through with upset them. It identified that they really don't have anything or anybody.
Okay.
And it was upsetting.
If clients are getting upset, I think sometimes being in that uncomfortable position could be beneficial, because sometimes the client might realize, you know what, that is upsetting me. I've never really wanted to bring that in the open.
Some people have no friends or one friend, they're perfectly happy with that. Some people have got 100 friends and they still feel isolated.
Yeah.
And that's something that, as trained adults, we can just tease out of the person during the assessment without having to really drill down into, quantities and qualities and things like that.
Somebody who's maybe going through a bit of grief and loss, or is estranged from their children, or they don't feel connected, it just sort of surfaces a conversation, but you don't have a lot to offer within our scope of support anyway. We're looking to external support, hoping that we haven't left them upset.
My name is Chelsea. My role at ACNA is the team leader for the Regional Assessment Service, and I've worked at ACNA for just shy of 2 years. So my story was around the Duke Social Index. I had a couple of incidences, two that I can really think of. I did get a response where somebody had family that were estranged, family that were deceased, recently deceased, and a bit of family breakdown that sort of came from that. It did make me feel quite sad, and it also made me question what was the need for me to open this up for you, keeping in mind that there's not a lot that we offer specific through our program. So I'm going through my mind thinking, have you spoken to anybody about this? Who could you reach out to? Are you going to be okay when I leave today? So it was more around I felt sad for the client, and then I was concerned for them. If there was something I'd like to let the department know about, it would probably be that every person, as we know, every person is different, and sometimes the screening questions we're trying to categorise the person, it just doesn't quite capture their situation. So maybe more identifying, is there a concern, yes or no, and then expanding on that if needed.
So IAT looking at a holistic assessment, looking at all the aspects of people's lives, it gives us that opportunity to see what's important to them, where are the barriers, and how can we support them to get to where they're wanting to go, regardless of if it's a physical, psychosocial, psychological. We can make steps along the way. So I think that really facilitates a reablement approach. There are some other elements that inhibit some of the reablement approach.
You're focusing on the deficit, not on the strength, and being strength-based, I think it leads us into something being wrong with the client.
I don't feel it gives us enough options to say, look, let's look at some short-term strategies and write them down and put some great ideas, non-funded services, but also just that short-term, well, let's do it for some short-term, see how you go. I just feel it very service-driven and long-term.
I think, especially in the functional section, to not have to check that the client needed help, to be able to put those observations and those strategies and solutions that we offer, but also sometimes the clients have already adapted some way that they do, the way they do something to their level of function, and that's good to note as well.
There is that challenge that we've heard of everybody working through that physical functioning. How do we make those recommendations when we're up and about, and then going back to the table to go, these are the things that we've spoken about to get you on your way. My name is Andrew. I've worked at ACNA for about 8.5 years now, and I'm the National Learning and Development Lead. I think one of the big areas of learnings is how we provide ongoing support. So there's that idea of capability is not just an initial training, it's ongoing support and learnings and adjustments. And part of that, if somebody's learnt something and then they're applying it in their role, they're going to have a question, am I doing this right? Am I doing it well? So for us at ACNA, the question is always about how do we provide that initial learning and training, but how do we keep that capability going? So if people do have those questions, there's somewhere where they can go and ask those questions and learn from each other and share those experiences.
Even though I've always felt like I've got the best out of a client during an assessment, sometimes parts of the IAT, we're having probably more in-depth conversations because we're asking these questions that we probably wouldn't have done. And then you sometimes think they just won't keep talking about that, which is great because you are having that extra value. So
the one thing I do like is that it does bring up those extra conversations that we wouldn't normally have. For me, I'm a people watcher, and I pick up little ticks and little things that they wouldn't normally tell you about unless you've picked it up. The thing that I don't like about it is that I'm sitting on the computer, and I miss those things.
So to me, personalised conversation isn't about a drop-down box and choosing an answer. It's about listening to that beautiful story, seeing how they're engaging, watching their body actions. I'm a hands-on person. I can't reach out to their hand when I can see that they're a little bit emotional when I'm trying to type away.
Some of the conversations are a little bit difficult, like we all said, with the social scale, but I did have one in particular client who, going through the medication list, she divulged that she takes this over-the-counter sleeping medication. Right. And it came out that it was because of her husband died of Huntington's and her son is expecting a baby, and she was very concerned about this baby, whether he was going to inherit this diagnosis. So it opened up this conversation about her stress levels that probably wouldn't have been disclosed because you don't ask for the medication, and it wasn't on her medical list. So we actually Googled on the computer, because I have my computer there, where to go, and we encouraged her to talk to the doctor, and she actually linked in with MS to have some genetic counselling around that.
My name's Nikki. My current role is team leader in the support plan review team, and I've been in that role since April 22. And before that, since 2012, I was an assessor for North Metro, so I'm coming up to 11 years at ACNA in September. Long time. What I love most about assessing is meeting clients and hearing their stories and being able to meet people that I wouldn't in any other way. So I've come across so many interesting people from all walks of life, and being able to take their stories and make positive change and give them some opportunities to improve their life. I'd really like the department to know that we are a really person-centred organisation as ACNA. We've always focused on the individual. And going on to a new assessment stream, I would really like them to be wary of not having a tick box process and still including the client as an individual, and that being the focus.
So I go in the house, get their consent, do an active assessment at first. I don't pull the computer out until we've actually had a walk around the house and they've shown me everything. And then I say, so would you like to sit beside me so you can see what I'm actually looking at on the screen? And they become quite interested in what I'm doing, yeah.
Through developing the rapport, you know, the active assessment might happen at the beginning or throughout.
I think if we could have maybe some more in-depth training into being able to delve into those scales in a different way, and without have to specifically answer those questions.
I think it's just coming back to our baseline values of strength-based, motivational style interviewing technique. It doesn't matter whether it's IAT or NSAF or whatever, we're still going in with that approach. So therefore, it opens up the opportunity for us to do an active assessment, because it's like, show me, and then is there a better way to do it?
So my name is Dawn. I've worked for ACNA for 10 years. And I'm a wellness assessor. So I had an experience with IAT when I was doing the assessment with an Indigenous lady. I decided I would try and do the kicker assessment with her. I started to show her the pictures of the boomerang and the crocodile, and she was looking at me kind of funny. And then I handed her the comb and I said to her, so do you know what this is? She said, that's a stupid question. I'm not a kindergartner. I'm not 2 years old. These questions are demeaning. And I said, but that's okay. It's obviously not in your interest to do this assessment, so we will swap over to the GP cog. And she said, yep, okay. And we just went ahead with the GP cog.
So it was actually the very first IAT I did, and I was doing the GP cog. And there was no identified memory issues. So we did the GP cog and it clearly identified that she had some difficulty with her memory, and the client got very, very upset and started crying and actually asked to cease the GP cog. It was really challenging to do that and how to respond. I think I did okay, but I can imagine, you know, I've been in the job 10 years, so if you're new into the role and you are faced with that on your first IAT, it would be really challenging. So I think that's something that needs to be bear in mind.
What a terrific session that we've had today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories, all of your experiences, and for highlighting those things that are really great about the IAT and the areas that we think, you know, some little tweaking might be helpful. I also want to thank you for embracing the IAT. You know, it's a real privilege to be given the opportunity to test something that will actually form part of our lives in a year's time. And it's also a real privilege to be able to respond to the Department of Health and Aged Care when they said, can you do some extra IATs? And so thank you for already doing, I think it's 1,311 or something like that, IATs. We have learned so much. I know the department's going to love being able to hear your stories and your experiences, and I hope you enjoyed the experience yourself. And I look forward to hearing their feedback once they've seen and heard everything you've had to share. So thank you.